You would think in a school full of teachers you would have ample opportunity to share your thoughts with others. But days can go by without meaningful conversation with your colleagues. It's especially difficult if, like Vicki, your classroom is isolated in the first place.
I was not assigned to a mentor teacher. I was basically on my own. Physically, I was even in a building outside of the building. So I was pretty well segregated, other than some people who were physically across the hall. It was an outdoor walkway separated. I was in a classroom on my own, and so that was kind of frustrating.
But teachers can feel isolated regardless of their classroom's placement. The sense of being alone makes it hard to share concerns about your students with others.
In the first 2 or 3 years that I taught, it was a situation where I was doing this all by myself. And in the back of my mind, I was questioning, am I doing enough? Am I doing the right things? Am I doing what's appropriate to the grade level? Am I overextending? Am I teaching below these kids? The feeling of isolation by not planning with other teachers has added years to me, many gray hairs, many sleepless nights, because I wasn't able to bounce off of other people, to look at what they were doing. The old cliche about 2 heads are better than 1 is even more appropriate when you talk 3 or 4 heads, because you're looking at the differences in opinions and ideas and how you bring those together.
Building a community of colleagues breaks down the sense of isolation. By sharing experiences, you can build relationships that encourage you and remind you that you're not alone.
None of that's going to happen if collegial relations within a school are as fragmented and broken as student-teacher relations sometimes are. When you have fragmented and broken relationships, you don't have a learning situation in a classroom. And when you have fragmented and broken relationships, you don't have the kind of collegial community that can become a form of power for change, for positive change.
You can build collegial relations when you find time to get together, to listen to each other and talk about issues that affect your classroom and school. Vicki connected with fellow teachers in a study group where she became an integral part of a group in spite of her isolated classroom.
What we've been able to do is share ideas, share philosophies of education. I don't necessarily always agree with what people say, but that's okay. I have my thoughts, they have their thoughts, but it has sometimes made me reflect in a different area that I had not thought of before.
Judy found encouragement to work with her troubled 4th grader when she discussed the situation with colleagues in her study group.
Dialoguing has opened up this thing that says, I'm not alone in this boat because there are other people doing the same thing. Because of my conversations with other professionals, I think I have the patience that's going to say, I'm going to make this. I think that I can be a benefit to this child because of a lot of the help that I've gotten from others.
Dialoguing with colleagues benefits your students as you take valuable insight back to your classroom. It can happen in a study group or one-on-one conversations. However you connect with your colleagues, collegial relations instill confidence in yourself as a teacher and restore the meaning to teaching.
In community, we can encourage each other, which I think is a word, encourage, that means literally to take heart.
Another strategy to restore meaning to teaching is finding time to reflect and be thoughtful about your teaching.
I don't know how you can do good work of any sort in any field without being deeply reflective about who's doing the work. What are those inner qualities that are driving the methods, the techniques, the skills? Who is the self that's holding this information?
Reflection allows teachers to examine the self that ultimately defines them as teachers. Reflection helps you address the internal struggles that affect your teaching philosophies and practices.
My first 3 years of teaching, I never felt like I really got a handle on my teaching. Some things went well, some things didn't, but I just kept knowing that there was something missing. But I couldn't put my finger on it.
Something was bothering Vicki about her teaching, but she wasn't sure what it was. By spending time in reflection, she was able to look at herself honestly and tackle her concerns in a direct manner. Once she had a clear picture, she could choose her direction.
I think more than anything else, it's made me reflect on what am I doing, not just I'm here to teach curriculum, but reflect upon what is happening, where are we going, how are we progressing, how can I improve? These things went well, these things didn't. Well, okay, what can I do to make these better? And if I am doing something good, what can I still do to make it even better, to make it more powerful for the children?
Karen found that when she took time to reflect on her teaching, she discovered a new view of herself from the eyes of her students.
What I found, and what's been the most critical piece for me, is that I became very self-conscious as a teacher. And I think that that's something that we're not taught to value as teachers, to be self-conscious. And self-conscious, I mean, I started to see the children watching me and listening to me, and I started to notice the effects of even a look, the effect that would have on an entire class of children. And so I really now would like people to celebrate the sense of being self-conscious, that it's not something to be afraid of.
To develop a sense of self-consciousness and find time for reflection, some teachers write in personal journals. Others record their thoughts on tape or dialogue with colleagues. The method is not critical. All that's important is time. Time for yourself, to examine your profession and discover how you can restore meaning to teaching and help your students learn. Restoring the meaning to teaching doesn't happen overnight. The 3 strategies, shifting the focus from teaching to learning, talking with colleagues, and reflecting on the practice of teaching, are dependent on one another. Used together, building on each other, they can restore the meaning and joy to teaching.
We are here for the children. When I hear them be excited, we can't wait till we come back to your classroom. That's what it's all about.